So now we're going to be talking about types of components. First, I'm going to delete this because we are not going to need it. And right here, I'm going to say header. So whenever you work with React, you have two main types of components. You have a functional component or a class-based component. So the difference is what you want to do with this. That's the main difference. And at this point, this header is just a function. It might receive some arguments, we will do that later, but for now, it's the function returning some JSX, something really basic. So it's returning some static data. That's good. So this is a functional component. This component, the functional components, doesn't care much what happens with the rest of the components. It doesn't care what happens with index or what happens with news list or whatever. It's just returning some data, some JSX. It's like saying, okay, dude, my job is just to send some JSX. That's what I'm doing. I don't care what happens with the rest of the components. My job is just to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. And that's what it's doing. That's the main purpose of a functional component. So in the other hand, you have the class-based components. These components are a little bit more complex. They have the ability to know what is happening on the application. And they could have a record or maybe a record of data that could be changing inside our application. Don't worry, we're going to do that a lot. So for example, our header is going to be real simple. We will have a logo and an input to search and filter the news. So I'm going to write it right now. We're going to have, instead of a div, we're going to have header, just like that. Let me change it right here, header. And this header is going to have a logo. So I'm going to say div and, just logo, whatever. For now, it's just really simple. And then we can have an input. So this input, and let me add the type, which is going to be text. And we see everything is good, logo and the input text. So whenever we type something inside this input, let me make this bigger. Whenever we type a keyword right here, this header is going to connect to the news list. And it's going to try to search and use a post with the same keyword in the title. So if we type MBA right here, just MBA, we're going to catch this value, go to the database, and render that news inside news list. So this header needs a way to connect with the rest of the application. So again, we need to do something else right here. This must be a class-based component because it needs to know what happens. There are ways to create a functional components and emulate that. But for now, we're going to need to change this to a class-based component. How do we do it? First, I'm going to delete this. We are not going to need it for now. And I'm going to leave this just like it is. So now, to create a class-based component, we can start with the keyword class. So this class, it's going to need a name. So we can use the same name, header. And the creating a class header is just like doing var header. If you come from the ES5 world, it's kind of creating an object. Of course, they are not the same. We have a lot of more features with classes, but it's just like creating an object. So we are creating a class with the name of header, and we enclose everything inside curly braces. That's the first part. Okay. So now the header, this class header, needs to connect with the React application. So what we need to do extends, and then space, and we need to invoke React, the React we have on top. And this React has a method that is going to be called component. So we're going to say component. Okay. So whenever you use a class, you need to use the render method, just like we did right here with the render. It's kind of different anyways. So to use the render method, we need to, again, enclose everything inside render. So we're going to say render, open and close, and then inside curly braces, we're going to put the whole content that we want to render. So again, it's first we use the method render, then we return something, and it's going to be some JSX. So again, if you come from the ES5 world, this is like just like creating a constructor function and creating a method that is going to be render, and then this one is going to be equal to a function, just like that is going to return some content, something really dumb. So this is the same idea than doing this. Of course, we have a lot of more extra features with class-based components that we're going to be talking about them later. So okay, I'm going to delete this. And if I save it, and notice that class header and then export default, we are exporting this class. If we go right here, we get the same result. For now, we're not going to get any difference from a functional component, but we're going to do it in a minute. So okay, we can make this, we can convert this to something a little bit better. I'm going to be using ES6. So instead of doing React component, so this means that we are bringing something that calls component that it's inside React, and we are importing React right here. So with ES6, we can make use of the structuring, and we can say comma and then curly braces, and I can say component. Just like this. And this is not React, it's ES6. So with this is going to be called destructuring, and pretty much if I delete React component and save it, it's still going to work. So how is this working? Well, whenever we use destructuring, this is pretty much saying, okay, go to React and bring something that calls component and create a variable that calls component with the value of react.component. So behind the scenes, we don't see this. This is happening in memory. It's entering to React and it's saying, okay, graph react.component and create a variable. So it's doing a variable that calls component, something like that. And this one is going to be equal to React. Let me make it right. React.component. Component. There we go. So now whenever, let me again change the C to a capital C. Whenever we use component right here, is going to be equal to react.component. It's going to create an alias for this. So let me delete this. So this destructuring is going to be equal to that variable. That's why we can use component right here and skip the react.component. Of course, everything's working. Okay, that's good. So we're going to be working a little bit more with this, but first we need to add some styles. This is really, really ugly. It's really, really ugly. We're gonna go back to this and check which features we get with classes. So first, we're gonna add some style because it's really, really ugly. Let's go to the next one and talk about styling.